Okay, thank you for coming, everybody. Great to see such a big turnout as well. 70 people right now looking at my face. That's not scary at all. So, look, we wanted to do a webinar. Oh, sorry, just to introduce myself. My name is Ben. I'm the head of code enrollments at The Learning People, have been here for 8 years. I love what we do. And we wanted to put a webinar together, another one. This is, I think, now the third or fourth that we've done in a relatively short amount of time. For a number of reasons, really. I think right now we are experiencing unprecedented demand for our courses, and particularly around our coding courses. And I think there's a few reasons for that. I think that number one, coding is something that you can learn from home, given the proper time, training, support, structure, and so on. I think that there aren't many people I know that are unhappy with being a coder, with the variety of work available to them, the flexibility that is available to them, and the earning potential. I don't know anybody that's unhappy with that kind of stuff either. So I think for lots of reasons, it makes sense, and probably mostly, well, coding is and has always been a 0% unemployment industry. Even now through COVID, continues to be 0% unemployed. So we wanted to put together a webinar to inform you guys, answer any questions that you might have, let you know what it might look like for you in your journey through wherever you are now moving forward. The way this is going to work is I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk through a few slides to make some points that I think are relevant here. Mike Appleby is going to talk through services that run alongside your training. And obviously this is one of the most important parts, because that's the end result is you guys, getting the job at the end of it. And then I'm going to talk through the course, and I'm going to try and keep that brief, because believe me, I could waffle on all day about it. But I'm going to talk through the major points of the course. And then I think it's best to open up to questions at the end. We will be running a short video at the end from one of our existing students as well, and the experience that he's had so far. So to kick off, let me share my screen with you guys. I'm hoping you can all see that. I'm going to take that as a yes. Awesome. Okay, so this is just some of the things that we're going to be talking through throughout. But to jump into my first slide, one of the things that I thought was worth mentioning, which was a statement made recently by the Vice President of HR at IBM. IBM, like arguably one of the biggest IT companies in the world. And for the Vice President of Human Resources at IBM to say, whether candidates learn their trade at a coding bootcamp or a community college, they've got the right skills, then they've got a job at today's IBM. And I wanted to include this today because I think that is a powerful statement to come from an organization like IBM, because in my role, I come across so many jobs from companies that say they require a degree, for instance. And then when you ask them a little bit more about that, actually, they have no clue what they're asking for, or they just put it on there because they think, oh, people should have a degree. We don't really know. Whereas actually some of those organizations that are more informed, like IBM, outright say, we're just looking for the right skills. We need coders, basically. So I wanted to add that. I thought it was pertinent. I also wanted to mention the impact of the pandemic on the tech industry. I think, right now we have to acknowledge that the world is very different to what it looked like 6 months ago. And that's having an impact on all of our lives, all companies, all industries around the world. And I thought for that reason, it's worth mentioning this. Look, you can all read, I'm not going to read through it exactly, but the thing that I wanted to highlight here is that all of this data shows the sectors and how they've been impacted by businesses laying off staff. Right at the top there is information and communication, and that would be where IT and coding related roles would sit. And as you can see, it's been affected the least. And I'd add to this that all of the coders that I know that for whatever reason have been laid off, they've lost their jobs because companies are shutting down, unsure when they're going to open or whatever it might be, all of them have gotten a new role inside of a week. And I think, you know, that really speaks towards the continued demand for coders, even through the COVID pandemic. And this speaks further to that point. So the top roles across London right now are technology related. Developers and software engineers are at the top of that list, followed by IT management and infrastructure. And this is a statement from the Association of Professional Staffing. And I thought this was really powerful. So basically, at any given time in London, as a good kind of snapshot of what's going on in other major tech hubs, but in London, at any given time, 15% of all available jobs will be tech related. And right now, that percentage is 35%. So it's doubled. It's more than doubled. And I think that really speaks towards what is going on in the world right now, out in the different companies, different industries that have been affected in different ways. But I think particularly industries like retail, for instance, you know, they're obviously not going to be seeing the same foot traffic that they would have expected. And they're looking for new ways to do business. And I think this is an example of how that has changed in London, is that more organizations are looking to improve their online presence, to continue doing business, basically, to find new ways to continue trading. So yeah, tech-related jobs have doubled in London through COVID, which I thought was quite exceptional. My final slide, I think, highlights where some of these shortfalls are coming from. You know, why there's so many coding jobs and not enough coders to fill them. And I think this slide speaks to that. So what we're basically looking at here, and this information comes from our friends over at Stack Overflow. And if you don't know what Stack Overflow is, it's the kind of go-to for tech-related industry information. Now, in orange there, we're looking at coding-related graduates, basically, year on year. And in grey there, we're looking at coding-related jobs, available jobs, year on year. And as you can see, the gap just gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. Now, we operate in that area where we're trying to pick up some of the slack there, but that gap is just getting bigger and bigger all the time. So we're looking to train more and more coders. Hopefully you guys will become coders. So that's it from me for now. Like I say, we will have questions at the end. Go ahead and pop them in the chat. But I'll hand over to Mike Appleby now for a discussion around our career services. Mike's going to talk through it in a bit more detail and add some context to that. So I'll stop sharing my screen so that you can all see Mike's lovely face. Over to Mike.
Thanks, Ben. That was a very kind introduction and the complete opposite of what you say to me outside of these things, but there you go.
No.
So yeah, thanks everybody for joining today. I think there's a couple of points that I think are really important to make, and those are that a career change, I think it's important to understand how we know how daunting a career change can be, and how stepping into something that you don't perhaps have experience of, or you lack any kind of confidence in, is a big move, and it's a big investment of time and money that goes into this. But the rewards for it are absolutely huge. And I think I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking around career services, why I believe learning people are the best choice to be able to make a career change. Obviously I am biased, but we've put heart and soul into a lot of this and done a huge amount of research. But also just to kind of give you a bit of a feeling of some of the support that you get with us as an organisation, and why, yes, the industry, the tech industry, if you like, is crying out for skills. There is a real ongoing need for obviously for digital skills, but why it's really important to supplement that with some of the softer skills, and also understanding how to approach a job market. So I'm sure there'll be some of you out there who probably already got your CV up on websites, perhaps going through interview processes, things like that, and are probably banging your head against a brick wall. That's how most students tend to join us. You know, they've thought, okay, I want to make a career change. I've reached out to friends and family, and I kind of, for whatever reason, you've ended up coming to us because you feel that coding and a career in tech could be right for you. And that's a really important kind of marker in your journey. Okay, well, first off, I've kind of started to realize the industry that I want to go towards. And the reason that we exist and the reason that we're growing as a business, and we've grown internationally and we're continuing to grow, is because the tech industry is crying out for these skills. What we train, it works. And employers, I spend a lot of time with employers. I built and ran a recruitment business for 5 years. I've worked on the job boards. I've worked with the government on initiatives. I'm currently tomorrow speaking to the NHS around how they can drive more digital skills. They've got hundreds of thousands of people willing to give up their time, but they've got a real lack of digital skills within the NHS at the moment. So I spend a lot of time with employers talking about how do we start to identify where there's more talent? How do we have better conversations with people rather than a recruitment process that simply rejects because your CV doesn't fit? How do we identify where is the talent in our communities? Where is the talent in these, if you look at some of the major job boards, there'll be over 15 million CVs on each job board. So how do we start to identify the talent within those job boards, within those CVs, without having to search for keywords or previous experience? And that's a big conversation happening at strategic level within the FTSE 500 organisations out there. So it's a really important topic at the moment. And one of the big tick boxes that employers see for our students is that somebody is willing to invest their time and invest their money, and they clearly have the ability to learn new skills, and that to them is very valuable. So that's why it's easy for us to have conversations. The global head of talent for IBM is actually on our advisory board. We've got a conversation with somebody else at IBM tomorrow. The head of people for the MOD is on our advisory board. We're having these conversations with the NHSX because it's a real problem out there, and they want to tap into people who are able to learn, able to develop, and who are motivated in their careers, right? So those kind of key skills you cannot identify on a CV. You can't search from a CV. I can't search for somebody with those skills on LinkedIn. So taking these kind of first steps, coming along to these webinars, you should talk about the fact that you're doing these webinars, talk about the fact that you're doing your research, start to engage in conversations out there. And then by actually committing to the learning and the training, then you can start to have more technical conversations and find out where you fit in the world of coding, because it's pretty vast out there. But like I say, I wanted to talk to you a little bit around career services and that support that we give you whilst you're with learning people, because it is a two-pronged approach. Learning the technical skills and the coding languages and becoming proficient at that obviously is, well, according to employers, that's 70% of the battle. The other 30% kind of sits in the soft skills, but kind of none of that matters unless you can open the doors and unless you can actually get in front of employers and actually get those first jobs. And that's the piece that we've spent a lot of time and money investing in to make sure that we support you along this journey. And the impact that it has on students who are able to make a career change from perhaps an industry that's in decline, or in lots of cases, we've seen people who've had long-term unemployment, who have faced all sorts of barriers to getting into a career. The change that it makes when they find a career that's A, fulfilling, where B, they feel like they're utilising their skill set, they're bringing something of value to an organisation, and they found this community that they're growing and developing with. That change is amazing, and it's what kind of drives the 100 people that work at Learning People. It's what motivates us. That's kind of the buzz for us, is seeing people kind of get there. So like I say, my experience, I actually used to work in the media industry a while back, and it got pretty much decimated by digital. I worked in radio and press, two products that we very rarely talk about, or that rarely feature in any kind of advertising spend or budget anymore. They got destroyed, and a lot of people that I knew with great skill sets were unable to go and find work because they didn't have digital on their CV. They've been working on a newspaper. We used to build newspaper pages by sticking things on actual bits of paper and taking it off to go and be printed, So all those days are gone. And I've watched this change of migration towards digital for like I say, for about 12 or 15 years. And so I made the choice back in 2007 to move into recruitment within the tech industry. And at that time, it was amazing. We were flying. We were working for companies like Yahoo and AOL and Facebook, who were just growing at the time. And then about 6 months in, Wall Street collapsed, and I faced my first redundancy. Well, it was actually second redundancy because I was made redundant from the radio station. Second redundancy in the employer that I was working for, the recruitment business, which closed down. I managed to get into another recruitment business. 6 months later, was made redundant from that, as that closed down as well. I then changed career completely and went into food and drink. And I hated that for about 2 years before I finally started getting onto a pathway that I enjoyed. And throughout that whole period, when there was a real decline in jobs that were available, a massive amount of people who were applying for jobs, I had recruiters that were unsupportive towards me and told me that I couldn't change industry. I proved them wrong back then, and from then onwards, about 10 years ago, I then built a recruitment business that was all around how do we help people make career changes and do that. And I ran that business successfully until I joined Learning People and came here full time. I also launched initiatives to help young people, work with governments, work with universities. So I've got a really good view of kind of how it is. I probably understand how a lot of you might be feeling at the moment if you're in any of those kind of situations. But there's a lot of knowledge out there, and the world has changed in a big way. And we built the career services to really give you the full information on how to go and apply for jobs, how to be confident. It's not just write a CV. You know, like honestly, the amount of people that we spend time with who say, look, I've written my CV, can you check it to see if it's, it doesn't really matter. Like the CV is such a small part of a job search. And if you're changing careers at the moment, you're thinking of a career change, it's almost redundant, because what you did in the past, you might have been a chef, or you might have, you know, worked in retail, or whatever it is you've done. If you're moving completely into tech, you know, what you've done on a CV is not going to be picked up by recruiters. Now you can take it, what we want to try and do is teach you how to take the skills that you've learned previously and put them into your messaging as you go forward. So, okay, if you were in retail, you're probably very customer centric. You know, you're able to work long hours, you can work shifts, you know, you've worked as part of a team, you can work with the public. Take all of those skills, apply them to your new skills, and put that forward to an employer to make you a candidate of choice. All the time you're a CV, you are just a piece of paper and a bunch of words. And unfortunately, you are anybody who's applying for jobs using job boards, it's the highest area where you're going to face competition with the least amount of success. So we built Career Services, which is a 3-phase process that starts 30 days once you start your training. So we want you to get used to doing your training, get used to using the tools, the online environment, get used to working with your Slack group and finding out all that stuff. We can accelerate it if you need to, but it's a 3-phase process. And phase 1, we go through everything from your CV and your LinkedIn profile to jobs in your local area, employers in your local area. And we go through all of that content to make sure that you've got everything that you need to start applying for jobs. Once we've got all that paperwork kind of done, we then look at how do we start getting engaged? How do you start finding those jobs, finding those employers that are close to you? And we've done this across the country. So, you know, and I've just helped somebody move from the UK to Michigan in the United States. So, you know, what we do applies to everybody and fits in everywhere. So it doesn't matter what stage you're at in your career or where you're coming from. The career services phases will take you through the process and will work for you as an individual. So it's a bespoke pathway that picks up on who you are and what you're all about, and we fill in the gaps and make sure that you can put yourself forward as a candidate in the best light whatsoever. So yeah, so it's important to us that we know what employers want, and really that's where I spend a lot of my time. We've built the process. You'll have support of the Career Services team throughout your time with Learning People. So when you're doing coding, if you're coming from a completely cold start by getting your languages, start by working out what industry you want to be in, start working out if you want to be a front-end developer or a back-end developer, and we'll work with you to find the jobs that are local to you and help you understand how to go and get those jobs. But we really know what employers are looking for as well. So last year we built an advisory board. Like I say, on that advisory board are companies like 3 Mobile, IBM, we've got the MOD on there. We've also got 3 amazing diversity specialists who talk. So we did a big event on women in tech. You know, it's a massive kind of growth area. We've also got mental health specialists on there. So you know, we really try and make sure that we stay abreast of what's happening out there, how people are feeling, and the challenges that people are facing. And it's in the tech industry's interest to help everybody overcome these challenges and get a career in tech. You know, the two big challenges that the tech industry faces right now are a lack of talent, a lack of people with the right skills, and the speed at which skills change. So like I say, you know, if you've shown that you can learn a new skill, learn a new language, be proficient at it, pass the test, start to work in it, then you become of value, because do you know what? In 2 years' time, there's probably going to be a new language, something else going on, and businesses have to react really, really quickly to that to be able to be competitive. So having that ability to change, having that ability to learn, having that ability to diversify your skill set is becoming more and more of value to employers. So really that kind of hopefully gives a little bit of insight. And I just think it's really important that everyone knows that we're all in the same boat. You know, I've gone through it. Loads of our students have gone through it. Our career consultants have gone through it. You know, we've all gone through thinking about career changes, understanding what goes on. And that's where us as a career services team and the senior management within Learning People spend a lot of our time. You know, we really want to understand and hear from our students and listen to what's happening out there. And we hold a regular workshop with our students, and we talk around what are the problems that they're facing out there, how they're finding it going applying for jobs. Like, it's tougher now, you know, right? there's no hiding from the fact there's less jobs and more competition right now. So making sure that you're well armed is probably more important now than it has been for a long time. And we're seeing some really, really good success from it. So yeah, you know, I just think whichever direction that you choose to go in, learning new skills, moving towards tech is absolutely the right direction to go to. And just make sure you do your research and you go with the right company, because it's not, you know, obviously the quality of the training is really important. What you're going to learn is really important, but actually the support that you get along the way, the advice that you get along the way is also really important to do. And that's what career services is all about. So happy to answer any questions. Hopefully your questions are really code related and you've got loads of technical questions to throw at Ben, but I'm here for the rest of the call and very happy to connect with people on LinkedIn and yeah, happy to be throwing questions at you.
Excellent. Mike, thank you so much for all of that. I think suffice to say it's a well thought out and intricate service that we offer to all of our students. It runs alongside your training. Everybody comes from a different situation, and well, the training that we've developed for the career services, it accounts for that, takes that into consideration. So what I'd like to do now is just talk through the course that I'd recommend to most people looking to get started with a career in code. I know that everybody here, and I'm very happy to see we've got 90 people here, which is amazing. But all of you will come from slightly different stages in your journey with us already. Some of you may not have spoken with us before. Some of you may have spoken with us a while back. Some of you are currently talking with one of our consultants. So some of you may know some of this already, is my point. But ultimately, if somebody is looking for a career change into the coding world, then there's going to be a few things that you need to gain, which I'll talk through. You gain all of these things from our full stack web development program. If you're not certain what full stack means, that basically means you're one person that can build an entire website yourself. This is an extremely valuable combination of skills, because employers would typically hire maybe 2 or 3 people to take care of those things, and maybe pay them £30,000 each. Whereas what's emerged in recent years is that actually one person can learn these things now with new technology. It's not as complicated as it once was. And of course, from an employer's perspective, if they could hire you and pay you, £50,000, it's far better than hiring 3 people and paying them £30,000 or £40,000 each. So for obvious reasons, it's popular among employers and it's popular among career changers because it covers everything you need. Now, when it comes to everything that you're going to need for a career change into the coding space, it largely boils down to 3 very specific things that you've just got to have. Number 1, I know it sounds stupidly obvious, but you're going to need to gain the skills that employers are actually looking for. That is an elusive thing to really understand sometimes. But in our case, we have our Industry Advisory Council, whose sole purpose, about 100 large companies on this council, whose sole purpose is to make sure that what we're teaching is absolutely leading to a job. It's our slogan, it's career-ready education. Everything we do here is about leading our students to jobs. So we don't teach anything for the sake of it. We're not interested in teaching the history of a or where it came from or anything. We want to teach practical skills that are going to aid you in getting that first job. And the content of the course is reviewed every 3 months. And as with our advisory board, they get together every 3 months to discuss these things. So we are very confident that number one is achieved very well. You're going to be learning the skills that employers are looking for right now. Number two, and I have to say this is probably not the most important one here, but still very important, is that you've got to have a qualification that lets employers know at a glance what you've got, what you're capable of, what level you've been certified to. And in this case, the qualification that you gain with the course once complete is a diploma in software development, which is certified by the Code Institute, and it's credit rated by the Edinburgh Napier University. So a really high level of qualification. It's equivalent to an HND level 5 on the EQF European Qualification Framework. So very impressive level of qualification. However, the most important thing is the third and final thing that you've got to have is a portfolio. I can't really place enough emphasis on this. I can't stress the point enough. When you are applying for jobs in the tech space, particularly around coding, they're going to ask you what you can do, show us basically. Which is why, as part of your training, you will build 4 major websites, major projects, and 7 minor projects, all of which have been designed to show off different skill sets that we know employers are interested in seeing. So when you get to interview and they say to you, wow, your websites look great, how'd you get them to do this or to look like that or whatever it might be. But my point is, you are the ones that built these things with your own 2 hands, and as such, it will be easy for you to talk them through what you did. Actually, most of our students, they're dead proud of what they created. They want to show it off. And to employers right now, that really is like gold dust. They just really clearly want to see that somebody can do the job, and there's no better way than to show them that you can do the job, basically. So that's the 3 things that you've got to have. Just to wrap up a couple of important points around the course, I think number 1, in terms of how it all works, you guys probably aware it's all online training now. So it's very convenient, it's very flexible, completely down to you when and for how long you ultimately study, how much you put in. That's the idea of this, is that you can do it full time, you can do it around a part-time job, you can do 10, 15 hours a week, whatever works for you, basically is the point. And yes, there's a lot of structure around how that works, but it's down to you to decide how much time you can devote to it weekly. In regards to how long it takes, though, of course, that's going to depend on how much time you put into it. But to give you an example, most of our students keep up with around 15 hours a week, and on that basis, finish the course in around 9 months. Now, if you can do it full time, that's fantastic. I love that. You'll finish in around 3 or 4 months. And look, if you are, if you've got lots of other commitments, the minimum I would say is around 10 to 12 hours a week that you should be putting in. And if you don't think you can do that, then maybe we could look at other courses. But with this particular course, it would be a minimum of 10 to 12 hours, in which case you'll finish in about a year. Now, in regards to the tuition fee, this particular program, some of you may already know, the tuition fee is 6295. There's lots of options that go with that, and I'll happily discuss that with you guys or talk with a consultant about that. But it's 6295, £6,295. Right now, some of you may be aware that we have a grant on which basically takes off £500 off of all of the courses. So it's actually 5795 right now. And we're extremely happy with that price point, but I'd happily answer any questions around that and how it works for you guys. So that's basically it regarding the course. I did want to keep that brief and really just cover the most important things that you guys need to know about it. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Just before we do, I'd like to play a quick video from one of our existing students who, well, he speaks for himself. So let me just run that up real quick, and then we'll jump into all of your guys' questions.
Hi, my name is Andrew Porritt. I did the full stack web developer course with the Learning People. Prior to the course, I was an operations manager for quite a large telecoms company, but I wasn't really happy with my role. So I decided to get myself upskilled so I could look for something a little bit more challenging, a little bit more fulfilling. The reason that I chose the Learning People out of all the different companies that offer this sort of service was because they seemed so honest when I was speaking to them on the phone. They didn't make any grand promises, and they were quite down to earth with what they told me I'd be able to get out of doing this. And best of all, wouldn't really let me commit to anything until I'd gone and trialled some sample courses to see if I had an aptitude for coding in the first place. It seemed a much more honest way of addressing these sort of things rather than getting the money up front. So the main challenges that I had were almost all time related. The reason being, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I was working full time at the same time as taking the course. So what little time I got to spend with my family was very precious to me. There was an extra wrinkle of complexity in that I managed to get work in my chosen field before I'd even finished the course. It was all, any success that I have were almost entirely due to a very, very supportive wife and family. So, thanks to the skills that I picked up with the Learning People, I was in a position to be offered my dream job. Now I work with a company called And Digital as a associate product developer, and I've never looked back. It doesn't feel like I'm going to work anymore because I enjoy it so much. So, for advice to somebody considering this, as long as you're able to put in the hours and willing to put in the hours, then go for it. I managed to change my career and my life just based on a few months worth of graft. I've never looked back, and I am very excited for the future. I've had my first promotion already with And I'm always working towards my next one.
So that was Andrew, and look, we've got lots of student journey stories on our website under testimonials. Please feel free to take a look at that. I'd advise that you do. The reason why I love Andrew's story and like to share it is because he, I think, is fairly typical of a lot of people who come to us. They're looking for a career change. They have other commitments. It's not just themselves to consider. Andrew has a family. He didn't like what he was doing, wanted to get into something new, got his first job before he finished the course, has already received his first promotion with a new company with his dream job. So for lots of reasons, I think Andrew's story is a really, really good one. And I'm really grateful to say that it's not unusual either. So do take a look at some other student journeys on our website when you get a sec. I think for now, let's jump into some questions. I can see a bunch have come through, and I think we got some by email as well. So Jenny, did you want to read some questions for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Where shall we start? So we've had a couple of people discussing about being worried about changing careers because of their age. So we had a few people send in via email and a couple of people on the chat, obviously kind of wondering, they've not been coding for very long. They're worried that employers might not consider employing them because of their age and inexperience. They don't have a degree. Is any of this a factor? Are people too old to code? Is there an age limit?
Right, and that's a great question. Really, really good question. So look, I would be lying if I said there was absolutely no ageism at all, but I have to say it's very few and far between these days. And perhaps Mike can add some context to this in a sec, but in my experience, companies are looking for people that can do the job. When the companies that we know of are struggling to find good coders, they really couldn't care less about age, race, gender, or otherwise. So long as you're capable of doing the job, you'll be seriously considered for that role. Mike, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right in what you say, Ben. The employers look for passion and ability. There is definitely barriers in a million different examples, and often those barriers put up by middlemen. So I think taking out the middleman, going direct wherever you can do, building relationships is kind of what's important. And you know, if you're feeling a lack of confidence, then you let the work speak for you. You know, that's the most important thing. You know, coders that find they're constantly got work pouring in. It's often because the work speaks for them. So you know, build your network, understand the industry that you want to go into, and you know, most barriers can be quite easily overcome. We do go through this through the career services process as well. And yeah, you know, it's like I say, it's about letting the work speak for you, and it's also about making sure that you don't waste your time in areas that are going to be ineffective. So how do you measure whether or not what you're doing, or how you're applying for roles, what you're trying to do is being successful? How do you know that you're kind of barking up the right tree, if you like? So yeah, it's about that. And like I say, putting the right stuff on your CV, that big tick box that you're able to learn, that you're driven, that you're motivated, you back that up with your projects, and yeah, and there's nothing else to say after that.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I think with the right skills, qualification, portfolio, attitude, and these sorts of things, guidance from us, I think you'll find that age really isn't a barrier.
There's a question that kind of matches that as well from Joey, who asks, when building the portfolio, would you recommend having other solo projects, other jobs you might have completed? You know, would you recommend adding that before you've completed the course?
I'm sorry, so if they've done projects before? Yeah, absolutely. So your projects are going to be saved on GitHub. If you've got any previous projects, then absolutely get them uploaded to GitHub, because that's ultimately what you're going to be presenting to employers. So any coding experience is going to be relevant on that front. The major projects and the minor projects that you complete as part of the training. Many of our students do side projects alongside their training, and some, like regarding this question, some people have already kind of dabbled with coding and have some other projects that they could add. So absolutely, anything that you have built should be part of your portfolio and an example of what you're capable of doing.
I think just to add to that as well, Jenny, sorry to interrupt you there. I think, you know, again, this is, and I'll keep, you'll hear me banging on the same drums a lot, but you know, passion is so important. If you want to, I had this conversation with a student the other day. We were talking about he wants a career in gaming, right? Which is great. You know, you've identified an industry that you're keen on. You could probably talk about all your experience as a gamer, what you want to bring into the industry. Make a game. You know, build a game. But I think so you know, demonstrating your passion, showing what you can do is really important in coding. But also it's also really important to not put too much pressure on yourself. And I think, you know, whilst you're going through the learning process, you know, just take each step, make sure that you're focused on what you need to achieve at that particular time, rather than trying to do too much at once, because you know, you don't want it to get overwhelming for you. You know, so if you've done previous work, that will all play into your future for sure. You know, and if you feel confident and comfortable and you want to branch off into doing other projects and doing other bits of work and, you know, hooking up with other people and building stuff together, do it. You know, it's like I say, this is an industry that's all about passion, and it's a really close-knit industry. There is obviously millions of coders out there. Stack Overflow and GitHub are, you know, are full of people sharing ideas and getting involved. So, you know, you'll find there'll be constant influence. But I think if you're fresh to coding, I would say just really focus on making sure that you get the marks, you get accreditation, and that you get confident in the part of coding that you want to be involved in. So certainly during your learning phase, I would say try and keep as focused as possible.
Perfect. We've had a few questions on the actual languages learned on the course, what it includes, if that's HTML, CSS, Java, and a couple of other questions as well, kind of saying like, where's the best place to start, which languages are best to learn for beginners. Does this course cover that?
In short, yes, to all of that. So the main focus of the training is to teach the most important skill sets today. So what's most likely to get you guys jobs. Now, there's no getting away from the fact that if you're going to be starting a new career in coding, then web development is considered to be the smartest place to get started, because it's a little bit easier to learn, a bit quicker to learn, lots of jobs available, they tend to pay quite well, which doesn't hurt. So for lots of reasons, people start in web development. So there's a few skills that you're going to have to learn, things like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These things are considered to be kind of nuts and bolts of building a website. You've got to learn those things. The HTML and CSS is, you can build basic websites. It's the JavaScript that makes them really functional, really pop out, really look great, really modern. But then to make websites truly functional, and all of what I've just described, sorry, that's front-end web development. So that's all the things that you can see and interact with, basically. Now, to make websites truly functional, there's back-end development. That's, as the name suggests, it's all the things that are going on behind the scenes. Now, there's a number of different coding languages that you can use for the back end of building a website. In our case, we teach Python. And we teach Python for lots of reasons. Python's one of the easier coding languages to learn. It's something that's more easy to get your head around. It's kind of the written word, if you will, rather than having lots of different types of code that's hard to understand sometimes. With Python, I often feel like you're just writing words. So it's a little bit easier on that front, but also Python has a huge variety of other uses. It's incredibly versatile. So it opens up even more jobs to you guys down the line, because Python is used very heavily in manufacturing. It's used very heavily in robotics, in cybersecurity. Python's considered to be one of the most difficult types of code to exploit by hackers. But mostly when we do our surveys with our industry advisory council, they're all telling us Python. And sometimes people do ask, well, how come you teach Python instead of Ruby? Very simply, Python's more popular. And sometimes people ask me, PHP has been back-end, the go-to back-end coding language for many, many years. And that's absolutely true. PHP has been that, but not currently. So whilst PHP is still a very popular back-end coding language, that's only because that's kind of a legacy coding language, if you will. So lots of companies have to continue using PHP because when they built, like Facebook, for instance, when Facebook was first built, like 10, 15 years ago, they used PHP because it was the coding language of the day. And even Facebook would tell you now, if they had the choice to go back and do it all over again, they wouldn't have used PHP because it's been found to have lots of security issues over the years. And they've done the best they can with it. But the mammoth task of going back to try and transform all of that to something newer, something easier to work with, something more secure, they just can't do that. It would be a monstrously big task. So they have to kind of stick with it. Lots of companies are in a similar position, but all new projects are being developed using Python for backend. And for that reason, we teach Python.
And also, just to add to that as well, one of the reasons that I've always had an interest in the online learning space is because I think it's fair to say traditional education wasn't necessarily for me, but actually it's the speed of which the course can change and adapt according to what the industry requires. And obviously, it's in our interest to make sure that it's the most relevant course and that it's up to date. So, I've seen coursework and syllabuses change, quite frequently to continue to keep up with the industry. And I think it's also just worth pointing out that, again, you can kind of throw all these questions in at the start. And I think it's just really important that if you go for any high quality training course, training provider, learning provider, that it's getting started. It's taking those first few steps, getting learning under your belt, understanding how to take things on, understanding what it takes to actually learn a new language. Because the truth of it is that you'll find that some languages might stick with you for the whole of your career, but you'll probably want to pick up new languages in the future. And one of the interesting things that we see, and this has been a really interesting conversation with the government, is that if they want, the government talk a lot around how do we enable more people within our country to take on learning and to develop their skill set. And the truth behind it is that it's got to have a meaningful impact on somebody's life. If you're going to learn something new, that new skill set has to have a meaningful impact in your life. And one of the things that we tend to see is that after a course like this, that a lot of people will go on and they'll continue learning, and the learning will probably never stop after this. So there's no reason why you can't pick up another language at a later date if you think that's the direction you want to head in. That's the company that you're working with and what they're using.
I would advise that, Mike. I think one of the things I love about the tech world is that, and particularly around coding, is that the jobs that are available to you, and ultimately, honestly, dirty word, but money, ultimately how much you get paid is going to be determined by what you know in the tech world. So I would always advise you to be thinking of that next thing you want to learn, whether you learn something new every year or 2 or 3, always think, I want to learn this or I want to learn that, simply because when you get to the higher levels, you and 5 other people could be going for the same job. They might need 5 coders to do a big project, whatever it might be. But each of those coders might be on a different daily rate. I've seen coders doing the exact same job, one of which is getting paid £200 a day. And at the higher end, people are getting paid £300 or £400 per day, doing the exact same job, simply because they know more, they're worth more. So I would advise you guys to always be thinking about that next thing that you want to learn, because it not only does it open more doors, but it opens more income for you.
A lot of the time it depends on the employers as well, right? You'll go to one organisation that use one coding language, you go to another one that use something else, and I think that's the journey, isn't it? It's learning the knowledge, learning the industry, so that you can then go to an employer and say, actually, I don't think you're using the best languages here. Do you have plans to move to this or move to that? That's the journey.
What's next there, Jenny?
Perfect. So a couple of questions on how long it takes to complete the course, what's the quickest someone's finished, and also obviously some of our students have actually been able to get a job before completing the course. Are there many companies willing to obviously hire these students before completing? Lots of people kind of very excited about obviously getting into a career quite quickly, I think.
Good. Okay, so look, to answer the question, how quickly can you do it? Full-time, and I consider full-time to be around 35 hours a week. And if you are able to do that, you'll finish the course in 3 to 4 months. Now, I have had people do more than that and finish it in less than 3 months by basically doing 50 hours a week. And that's really going some, to be fair. Over the years, we've had a few people do that. There's usually a reason that they need to do it that quickly. So, right now is a reasonably good reason. But I think one of those guys actually, he had said to an employer that he already was a full stack developer and he actually wasn't. And he had like 2.5 months or something to complete the course. So he just had to barrel through it. So yes, it can be done very quickly. Do generally prefer people to get through the course quickly. Now, in regards to getting a job before you finish the course, this happens seemingly more and more often these days. And I think the reasons for that is that companies are acknowledging that they need more coders. And actually, if you can get a coder at the early stages of their development stage, then not only are they, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but basically you would be a bargain, because you are going to be a full stack web developer in the near future, except they're not going to be paying you what a full stack, at least not right away. So they kind of see that as a little bit of a bargain. Mike, would you add anything to that?
No, I think, everybody's in a different situation. Everybody, we've got people all over the country, people with, different backgrounds, different skill sets. So, it's really hard to say, how quickly can I get a job? I can give a couple of examples of students I worked with recently. One in Barnsley, who was actually 3 years unemployed, having been a scaffolder previously. He took the course. He was about 6 months through the course, and I actually went up and saw him in Manchester, and we went and sat down, had a coffee and did a bit of a LinkedIn session, and he started his new job 9 days after that session. So, and then we did, we ran one of our career workshops a couple of weeks ago, and this is during COVID. Somebody started with an organisation called CGI, got their first job in cybersecurity through the coding course. With CGI within 2 weeks from starting their course, didn't even meet anybody. They just did all their interviews online, which I think is weird. But what we've got to do at the moment. So yeah, it kind of depends on you as a person, and to be honest with you, a lot of it will come down to your own motivation as well. How you put yourself out there, how active you are with your networking. How comfortable you feel, and that's why. Big part of this is and a big part of kind of what we see in the career services is all around confidence building. It's that it'll often start where I'll say to somebody, okay, look, here's a connection to Microsoft. I want you to drop them a message, and they're like, what? I don't want to do that. I'm never going to do that. And then we get them to do it, and then they start obviously messaging everybody, and all of a sudden they've got a big network of support, and then it happens. So a lot comes down to you. It comes down to your own drive, your own motivation. The jobs are out there, so yeah, it can be usually as quickly as you need it to be.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
What's next there, Jenny?
So we've had a few questions on how good a computer do you need to do the course? Does it work on PC, Mac? Is everything in the cloud? What kind of tech specifics do you need?
So actually, there isn't, since well, we don't do any like CD-ROMs or anything like that. So all of the training is run through your web browser. Everything you're going to need will be provided to you from us. I'd say get a reasonably good computer, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy or special. You can get a laptop for £300 or £400. That is more of running everything that you need to. As you work your way through the training, you'll want to install different softwares. It doesn't matter whether you're using a Mac or PC. There'll be versions of software for each. In my experience, most coders prefer to use Macs for their work, but it doesn't really make a difference either way. In regards to it all being saved in the cloud, again, yes. So all of your work will be saved in the cloud, so you can log in anywhere. The only thing I might add to technical requirements, other than the fact that there really isn't any, is I personally, I know lots of other students do, they find it easier to code with a laptop because you can take it anywhere with you, sit outside or whatever, and go through periods of the training, or write up a thing that you need to do, a project that you need to do, and you can just go somewhere and get on with it, sort of thing. But I also find it very useful to have a second screen, second monitor. So if you have the ability to, if you have a monitor lying around, you can use a TV if you want to, or you can buy a second monitor these days fairly cheap. I personally find the training to be just a little smoother, because rather than having to switch between tabs of looking at your code and then your project and then your code and then your project, you can just have them both in front of you at the same time and see the changes in real time. No specific requirements. It's a good idea to have a second monitor, and everything is saved in the cloud. You can log in from anywhere in the world and continue your training.
I just on picking up probably where you're going to pick up, Jenny. I just saw a note pop up in the chat there about somebody saying around procrastination, trying to choose which language to learn, and all the rest of that, which I just thought was
dangerous word, that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and I must share a slide that I built with the marketing team for you to put into this presentation, which is all around how much time we waste in this kind of procrastination space. It's kind of the getting going, and like I say, the language that you choose, the direction that you want to head, what you want it for, whether you want to be a freelancer or you want to go employed, whether you're in Scotland or Spain or whatever you are, whatever you want to do. It's all about the support that you get along the way, making sure that you're learning with the right people, making sure that you've got a good network around you as you go through the kind of career change is honestly the most important thing to kind of look for. Obviously high quality training, learning the right skills, essential. Pass your test, building your portfolio is you can't do any of it without that. But just making sure that you have got the right level of support around you, you'll find that you start to fly. Our coding course, I would say, is this course is the most. I'm going to probably tread on some people's toes here, but probably one of the most successful courses that we have. And I love this, the journey that's as exciting as anyone else. I love watching people go down the journey.
I think I would.
You're right. That procrastination stage can be dangerous.
Yeah, I think I'd add a little bit to that, because look, nobody wants to rush into a decision. Of course you don't, especially when you're considering a decision that affects your life, the rest of your life potentially, maybe others if you have dependents and so on. So it's a big decision, of course, and of course the financial investment. Yes, we have lots of great payment options, but it's still an investment nonetheless. So nobody wants to rush you into that, and you shouldn't feel rushed into that. But procrastination is a real thing too, and I can speak on this from experience. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I couldn't even tell you the amount of people that have come back to me a year later, 2 years later, even 5 years later. And eventually, most people, I'd like to think, they eventually come back to us and they eventually enroll. And one of the things they kind of say is, the training's great. I've wasted a lot of time. Why didn't I do this sooner? And that's the kind of response I get from most people when they procrastinate for too long. And the issue with trying to decide between different things as well can cause even more procrastination. And I think what I'd actually like to add is the big six, as we call them, which is the 6 big coding schools that operate in the UK, because you can do this through us, of course you can, but there's other ways that you can learn these things. So for instance, and I will get through this quickly because I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, but there is us, when you're talking about, coding schools that you can trust and rely on, and you know, I know people that work at these other schools, but there's us, there is General Assembly, there's Makers Academy, there is Block, BLOC Block, there's Flatiron, and there's Trilogy. So we're the big 6, as we tend to refer to them, of schools that I know you'd be absolutely fine to enroll with. And then people generally tend to ask me, what's the difference then between them? Honestly, you'll have a good experience with most. The difference is, in my opinion, is that, first of all, probably the biggest difference is that we are the only ones that offer any qualification whatsoever. So whilst I know the training's great, what you're learning is great, you end up with a great portfolio, these sorts of things, you don't get any qualification. And, you know, that's a big deal for some people, for some employers. So that certainly helps. Also, we are the only ones that upgrade the course every 3 months to be in line with what employers are looking for, whereas I know all of the others have tuition fees ranging, all of the others have, well, it's a year or 2 at best in terms of updating. So it's just not quite as updated, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's, you know, sometimes things move faster than a year. And in regards to my final point, sorry, was the tuition fee I was just thinking about, but that's probably one of the major differences too. Some of you probably already know this, most of you probably do, but among the big 6, as you know, our tuition fee is 6,295, whereas all of the others have tuition fees ranging between £8,000 and £12,000. So I'd say those are the major differences, and procrastination can be a real thing when looking at all of those things. But if you're looking at any of those schools, I'd say you're probably in reasonably safe hands, but those are the differences. So I took ages to answer that question. I hope it helps.
The other thing I would add just to this, guys, because unfortunately, obviously, as career services, we tend to pick up with students once they've enrolled. Like Ben's been with the company for 8 years. You know, the team on code, I noticed that Connie's on this chat, has been with the company for 3 years, I think. Stuart's been with us for 6 years. You know, these guys have been doing this for a long time, and they are massively, massively genuine in their urge to try and help you make a successful transformation into code. You know, do pick up the phone, just give them a call. You know, we don't try and hard sell or close or anything like that. You know, they're genuine guys who know the industry, and just give them a shout, and they'll give you as much advice as you need. We're always on the end of the phone. I always feel a bit sad that I don't get involved in the start of it too much, but once you're enrolled, then we'll pick up.
Thank you, Mike. Jenny, do we have time for more questions?
We've had quite a few people just sort of asking about like payment options and kind of specifics, which I'm sure might be best to kind of give your email address so that we can kind of follow.
let me pop my email address on the screen, guys, and you can email that stuff over. I will have to say that we have many different payment options, and it's largely going to come down to well, whatever works best for you, honestly. Can all of you see my email address there? You see that? Yeah? You see that, Jenny?
Yeah.
My email address? Yes, sorry. So when it comes to the payment options, do send me an email or make contact with a consultant if you've got an email from them or you're in process with them already. But it's largely going to come down to your situation and ultimately what works best for you. As we've got many, I think 7 different payment options now, which, like I say, it depends on your situation. Do we have other questions there, Jenny?
I think we've kind of covered them all. I did have a few that were sent in beforehand as well, but you've literally just covered them.
Oh, great. Okay, good stuff. Okay, well, in that case, unless anybody else has any questions, it has been a pleasure. I hope this has been informative. I think we're maybe going to do more of these since everybody seems to like them so much. So yeah, my email address is on the screen there. Feel free to jot that down, shoot me an email, maybe get a chance. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. and I'll be happy to engage with you guys and talk some more about, you know, this journey and exactly how it might look for you and your circumstance. I'll be delighted to.